Today on What Were They Thinking? A man shoots himself on live TV. Johnny Lewis kills his landlady and then himself. A man admits to slow cooking his wife. Find out this week on What Were They Thinking? Last week, Jordan F. Romero, age 33, was being pursued by the cops for violating his parole for a weapons conviction. The saga ended when he stopped shooting at cop cars and helicopters and shot himself in the head. So what was Romero thinking? This was a troubled individual with deep emotional issues. Was there a depression, a bipolar disorder, drug problems? At this point, we still don't know. This was an individual who probably had a history of personal and occupational failures, which led to and was supported by his self-destructive behaviors. The car chase points to the possibility that he was looking for a suicide by cop situation. In fact, the police did fire at him, but either missed or only wounded him before he shot himself. What this all speaks to is that there are many people out there who have a history of emotional dysfunction and who are not getting the proper mental health treatment they deserve. As mental health experts and government entities, we have got to do more. The body of 28-year-old Johnny Lewis was discovered in a driveway after the troubled actor from Sons of Anarchy fell or jumped from a rooftop following a fight with his landlady, Catherine Davis. Authorities believe Lewis had beaten Davis, 81 years old, to death and killed her cat. His ex-girlfriend, Katy Perry, Sons of Anarchy creator Kurt Sutter, and Lewis's own attorney expressed their sadness but admitted that they weren't surprised at all to learn of his violent, untimely passing. Lewis had a long history of criminal activity and physical altercations. It's also apparent that he most likely had a mood disorder and extensive drug abuse and dependency issues. Sources reported that on the day of this deadly incident, he may have ingested a trendy new man-made drug called Smiles. Smiles is a psychoactive, hallucinogenic chemical that alters the brain's balance of dopamine and serotonin. People who use the drug become extremely euphoric, manic, hallucinatory, paranoid, and gain above-average strength and don't register any physical pain. In fact, two neighbors described him as going on a rampage where he was very strong and didn't appear to experience any pain when they were fighting him off. The lesson to be learned here is that untreated mental health and drug abuse issues most often may lead to incarceration, insanity, and in this case, death. David Viens was found guilty of his wife's murder last week. He was that Los Angeles chef who told detectives he cooked his wife's dead body for 4 days after killing her by binding her hands and duct taping her mouth during an argument. Viens attended the trial in a wheelchair after experiencing severe injuries when he jumped off an 80-foot cliff after the police fooled him into thinking that they found traces of her blood in his home. So what was this cook thinking? It appears he wasn't. The argument, which ended in him duct taping her and tying her up, appears to have been a violent but spontaneous one. This immediately points to a distinct possibility of a history of domestic violence. Why didn't he just admit that her death was accidental or unintentional and then just face the music? Instead, it appears he resorted to his pathological instincts and made the immoral, violent, horrendous, stupid decision to get rid of the body by cooking it. And though it may seem that slow cooking and dissolving his wife's body may have been a desperate choice for this killer cook, the reality is that his actions indicate he is a deeply and emotionally disturbed individual. Most people wouldn't be able to maintain their sanity knowing that they're cooking and storing their intimate partner's body in a gigantic pot and then pouring the remains in a grease pit of their restaurant. This may be part of the reason that he jumped off that 80-foot cliff. Perhaps the reality of the horror and evil of his actions finally became self-evident. Stay tuned for next week's episode on What Were They Thinking?